I'm really happy to have freshman Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in studio. She's from Colorado. She's the former owner, or current owner, maybe, Lauren,
yes.
of Shooter's Grill Restaurant. So she's a businesswoman, and she's also, wow, making a stir in Washington and in a good way. Lauren, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Dinesh.
Boy, we met, Debbie and me and you and your husband, we met in Washington State.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So that was an interesting event for me because this guy wanted me on his radio show, and I went on there just talking about the Second Amendment. My restaurant kind of has that Second Amendment feel with all of the waitresses open carrying, and he was like, "This is a really cool concept. Let's talk about it." And then I was invited to a Lincoln Day dinner where you were the keynote speaker. And once I got there, there was this think tank. And all of these great political minds were in this room, and everyone was speaking, and I kind of nudged my husband and said, "What are we doing here? Like, I can't keep up with these people." And then the MC comes to me and says, "Listen, Dinesh is running behind, so we might have to have you come up and speak in his place. His plane just landed. He's trying to get here." I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about? And I started thinking about just the issues with our school boards and how we need to get involved at a local level. Moms need to stand up and participate in those meetings. And you kind of saved the day. You showed up on time and you were able to speak. And it was like, cool, I don't have to do that. But then they still wanted me to speak after you. I said, I have to follow Dinesh D'Souza. What is this? And so that was quite an interesting night. I felt very much out of my place, but I left there knowing there was something more that I could do for our country. And I ended up getting involved to the point of running for Congress. I took out a 5-term incumbent. It was the first time in 48 years in Colorado that an incumbent lost a primary. And we won with no money, and we won by 10 points. So it was so incredible to go through that experience and see that I could actually affect and represent millions of people all across the nation.
So in some ways, you're saying that event sort of almost propelled you to the national stage and made you think that you could do more than just be someone who was locally active.
Absolutely.
You could actually enter the political process. You could actually compete. You could actually win. That's so awesome. That's so good. And now you find yourself in Washington, D.C., and, it's a strange place. It's an ecosystem unto itself. So let's give us your first kind of, you've been there 6 months. What are your impressions?
Well, first of all, being a mom of 4 boys and a restaurant owner, I've spent a lot of my life taking chaotic situations and putting them in order. So chaos and dysfunction are right up my alley. So DC is a perfect fit for me. we all know that the only kind of order that Nancy Pelosi has is tyrannical rule. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And, actually, we had discussed how we discussed how a lot of members of Congress kind of get this big head when they get to D.C. But in this current Congress, the 117th Congress, Nancy Pelosi makes sure to keep us humble and keep us in our place and know that she's the boss and we're in her house. It's such an interesting dynamic when you're there and you think, wow, our nation's capital, the people's house. But then you see Speaker Pelosi and she says, no, this is my house. You see that with the fences, the miles of barbed wire, the thousands of National Guards. She is very much making that her own kingdom.
Very interesting. So you're saying she doesn't function. I mean, when I think back to Speakers of the House, Tip O'Neill and others, I mean, they were the leader of the majority, and this was under Reagan. But you didn't get the idea that they were personally saying things like, everyone's got to do this, everyone's got to do that. You got the idea that this was a collegial operation, but you're saying that's all gone now. You've got this 80-year-old woman, right? Yes. Sort of, and every time she speaks in public, I mean, she's batshit. I mean, right? I mean, she's basically, you're dealing with someone who doesn't seem to be really all there, but somehow, nevertheless, the combination of that is combined with this authoritarian streak, and you're feeling it, and
very much
even
so.
The Republicans. I mean, in a way, the January 6th committee, the task force, is a perfect embodiment of that.
That's
right?
Exactly right. We started off this Congress with Nancy Pelosi removing Republicans from their committee assignments, and now she's still doing it with the special commission that she's put together. Now she was the one that was in charge of the security. She oversees the security there at the Capitol, and as soon as she saw that there were members who were going to question why the building was not secure, why we didn't have extra reinforcement when it was requested, she said, "You're not on the commission anymore." And she doesn't want those questions asked. And so it's very interesting that this is how everything in Congress is right now. There's no such thing as bipartisan unless a Republican votes on a Democrat bill. She controls the floor schedule. I have lots of legislation that's not coming to the floor because she won't allow it to.
And the only Republicans, it's not that she doesn't want an opposition. She seems to want a kind of a puppy dog opposition, right? So you have a Liz Cheney, and so she's happy. Okay, I'll have Adam Kinzinger, I'll have Liz Cheney on my committee. You've got these Republicans. I think in a way Kevin McCarthy captured it well when he called them Pelosi Republicans.
They absolutely are.
Right? Now talk about how odd it is that you've got these Republicans who participate in Republican powwows and conferences who are really doing Pelosi's bidding.
Yes. So specifically Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, I had no problem calling them out because they are invited and welcomed into our closed door meetings as a Republican conference. And yet they're allowed to go back to Nancy Pelosi's commission and release all of those secret conversations that we're having, those intimate conversations that we're having with our trusted colleagues. And I think they should be removed from the conference. They should not be allowed in those meetings with us and to engage with us at that level. This commission is a complete sham. If it wasn't, then Jim Banks and Jim Jordan would be allowed on that commission. But she's showing us right from the beginning that this is a sham. And then also with her political authoritarian power, she is even controlling the attending physician at the Capitol.
When we come back, I'm going to talk to Lauren Boebert about mask mandates at the Capitol and a whole bunch of other stuff.